Order, order. Kate Osborne to move the motion.
I beg to move that this House has considered peace and human rights in Colombia. Thank you, Mrs Miller. It's an honour to serve under your chairmanship today and to lead this important debate. The human rights situation in Colombia is out of control. State violence in Colombia is out of control. The 2016 peace agreement has mechanisms to address these issues, but it has not been implemented anywhere close to the levels that it should have. The Colombian government is refusing to recognise the scale of the problem, instead seeking to present a squeaky clean image internationally whilst innocent civilians are being murdered. And let's be clear, recent events in Colombia have been condemned internationally by governments, the UN, the OAS and politicians from parliaments across the world. It is essential that our own government here in the UK does everything it can to hold the Colombian government to account. We cannot support trade deals and training programmes for the Colombian police without also condemning the state violence, and we need to increase our practical support for the peace process. I have visited Colombia on our practical support for the peace process. I have visited Colombia on 2 occasions, in 2013 and more recently the implementation of the peace agreement. On those visits I met with a wide range of stakeholders. What I heard then and what I see now is incredibly worrying, and I know that there are many of us in this House who follow closely the situation in Colombia, and we need to keep doing all we can to improve the human rights situation and to make sure the hope that was given to so many with the peace agreement is not destroyed. The timing of this debate is pertinent with the recent protests and horrifying police repression of the protesters. Earlier this year, millions of Colombians took to the streets, but the response of the Colombian police was to treat the protesters, who were from all sectors of Colombian society, as if they were an enemy to be defeated. The police responded to the protests as if they were at war. The images and videos have been horrifying. Between the 28th of April and the 26th of June, Colombian human rights organisations documented between 26 and 44 protesters likely to have been killed by the police. There were 28 cases of sexual assault reported, 257 cases of violence against journalists covering the protests, including over 100 physical assaults. The UN documented 56 people killed during the protests, 54 civilians and 2 members of the police. There were numerous incidents and videos which have showed the close collaboration of armed civilians or parastate actors and the Colombian police. Something that has been highlighted for decades but repeatedly denied by supporters and defenders of the Colombian political elite. Most notably in Cali on the 10th of May and 28th of May, where armed civilians came onto the street to shoot at protesters while standing alongside members of the police. The response of the Colombian president to these incidents was to tell the protesters to go home, whilst at the same time remaining silent regarding the apparent paramilitaries and the police operating side by side. I hope the Minister is able to tell me what steps the UK government is taking to review its training of Colombian police to ensure it is not supporting units or personnel who have been involved in cases of human rights abuses during the protests. The response of the Colombian government to the protests and the violence of the police only highlighted further that this is a government more determined to stigmatise protesters than ensure their protection. As protesters were being killed, the Defence Minister and the Vice President made statements trying to link protesters to criminal organisations, whilst the Justice Minister unbelievably tried to claim the protests formed part of an international criminal conspiracy to tarnish the image of Colombia. These slurs are unacceptable and we must unreservedly condemn them. I give my full support to all those protesting peacefully in Colombia, and I will do whatever I can to defend their right to protest. I hope everyone in this session today will give their full support to this sentiment. I welcome the investigations that have been opened into the abuses committed by state agents over recent months, but this is not enough. The police are alleged to have killed 13 people during protests in 2020 and violently attacked protesters in 2019, but almost all of these cases have still seen no justice for the victims and their families. Will the Minister join me in fully condemning the violence against protesters and in calling for justice for the victims and their families? Will the Minister join me in fully condemning the violence against protesters and in calling for countries to be a human rights activist? According to the UN, 133 people were killed in 2020, and it's still the most dangerous country in the world for trade unionists, with 22 killed last year. It was also the most dangerous country in the world for environmental defenders in 2019, with 64 killed, and a further 44 were killed between the 20th of July 2020 and the 30th of April 2021. The British government have been signing environmental agreements with its Colombian counterparts, but we must ask what is being done to ensure there is protection for those on the front line. Now I want to turn my remarks on the calls for hope in Colombia. In 2016, the peace agreement was a historic moment that brought genuine optimism to many, particularly in the most impoverished regions of the country. While overall implementation has been slow and in some areas non-existent, there have also been important advances, and I want to congratulate everyone from all sides that have played a role. The advancement of the transitional justice system should be particularly celebrated, and I want to congratulate the unwavering commitment of the FARC to the peace process, both in terms of the former combatants trying to create new lives under enormous difficulty, as well as the former commanders who are fully engaged in the peace process by accepting responsibility for their roles in crimes committed during the war. Just last week, the Transitional Justice Courts issued its first accusations against a former general and 9 other members of the military for their role in the murder of civilians. It is essential that there is full engagement with this process from state actors who stand accused, and international support from the UK government for the transitional justice system is absolutely essential. I very much hope that the Colombian government will honour its numerous declarations of commitment to the peace process during its final 12 months in office. And I hope that the Minister here today will reiterate the government's support for the Transitional Justice Courts and for its recent steps to investigate crimes committed by both the FARC and the Colombian state. It is extremely worrying that FARC former combatants continue to be targeted. Over 270 have now been killed since the deal was signed, and in April of this year, 8 former combatants who were inside the peace process were killed in just 9 days. Their protection is an absolute priority, as is the advancement in the many areas of the agreement that have seemingly stalled, particularly the implementation of the rural development programmes and the illicit crop substitution programmes. The cocaine economy is often pointed to as the cause of the insecurity and violence in the countryside, yet of the 99,000 families signed up to the mutually agreed crop substitution programme, only 7% have actually received support for alternative crops. Without an alternative economic option, the coca growers have no way of surviving. The peace agreement is a comprehensive agreement, and we must do all we can to ensure all its chapters are fully implemented. I welcome the repeated statements of support for the peace process from the UK government over recent years, but I am sure we all agree that this must be backed up with maximum presence and pressure wherever and whenever necessary. And as we approach 5 years of the peace agreement, I would like to finish by calling on the Minister to ensure we honour our role as penholder and take a lead in international efforts to support a full implementation of the Colombian peace agreement, which is undoubtedly the best hope we have to bring an end to the human rights crisis and see Colombia truly in peace. Thank you.